Willie D. Live.
See, man, now you trying to take my job. You know, I'm the gangster love, right? I'm the cleanup man, all of the above. But, man, you just struck a nerve, man, and you really coming into my territory. So I got to bust back on this because otherwise, now you get another title under your belt, relationship guru. So let me try to bring the people back home for a moment. Hate on you a little bit. But, no, really, in all seriousness, man, I can't even imagine not desiring love. Like, you know, look, man, I've been in relationships in the past. Some worked, some didn't. I've had my heart broken. I've broken some hearts. But I cannot fathom not desiring a woman and being in love, that feeling. That feeling of being in love. See, and I know it's a sucker out there right now. It's a simp. The true simp are the ones who oftentimes call real men who know how to take their bitter with their sweet and accept accountability. A simp, right? They're the ones that say, he's a simp, he's simping, he's simping. Right. That's all the word. I just thought about something. The reason why a lot of times they say that word because they have limited vocabulary. Yeah, that's it. They ain't got no other words. But yeah, man, I can't imagine like being that traumatized. Well, I don't want to be in love. I don't want to feel loved or I don't want to feel love.
Well, love is one of the most fundamental needs of a human being. But I think there's some people that train themselves to feel that way. And I think when you talk about that whole simp thing, what's interesting to me is I think that it comes from not having. If you hear a man that uses that term, first of all, it's a man who's probably had his heart broken, right? He's referencing a time where he got traumatized. You know,
but there is such thing as simps, though.
There is a thing. There's a thing, right? Yeah. And I think that conversation can happen, right? But I think that it's definitely problematic if you think that being kind to a woman automatically makes you a simp. Right? And that's the problem, right? Because if she's a sturdy woman and she's really down for you, then you do better by treating her well than by, mistreating her, right? Now what has to happen though is that out of love for yourself, like the first love has to start with you. And if you love yourself, then you don't give that sort of love and treatment to just anybody and everybody. You don't sell yourself cheap. So generally speaking, if you talk about that simp term, maybe it might be a person who does anything for anybody and everybody, even people who don't respect that person back, right? Almost like a male version of a hoe. We talk about a woman. What's the difference between a woman that we call a hoe versus a woman that just has a healthy amount of sexuality? If you really think about it, there's a lot of good women who are not going to be out in the street telling everybody what they can do in the bedroom, but they're just as good as the prostitutes and the porn stars. They got all these skills necessary to please a man in the bedroom, but they're not sharing that with every man. There's a wall to climb. There's a standard to meet. If you meet the standard, then you get access to these things, right? Whereas you have some women who are like, I'm going to go put it on OnlyFans, right? or I'm going to go on Instagram and let every man know what I got going on. And I think that's where we draw that line, right? So I think the same thing might be true with men. I think every man should have a side of himself where with the right woman, you treat her like she's a queen, a goddess. You give her every pedestal that she's earned in your life. There has to be that side of you. But you have to earn that, right? So like my wife has earned that. I will submit to her. People talk about the word submission. As a married man, I think that goes for both people. I watch my father and my mother constantly submit to each other. My father wasn't a weak man at all. My father has killed people on many occasions. So he's as tough as he needs to be, but he always saved that tenderness and protective energy for my mother and put her on that pedestal. And so that's what my model was, right? And I think that for some of our young men, the challenge they have is they didn't have a model. Maybe the reason you think that, like for example, you'll hear a guy say, man, if you marry a woman that's got kids, you a simp. Why are you gonna take care of some other man's kids? Well, maybe part of it. I bet you 99% of the time, those are guys who grew up without any man that ever took the time to care for them. You know, and because I grew up seeing an example where this man took care of me and I wasn't his child. You know, but he said when he met me when I was 3, he said, "That's my son. I'm not letting anybody question that." We never used the word step, none of that. You know, and that gave me a type of security that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Otherwise, I'd just, been trying to figure it out.
Man, I'm so glad that you mentioned that submission thing because both men and women who are in healthy relationships submit. We just do it in slightly different, subtle ways, right? Traditionally, when we talk about a woman submitting, we talk about her being, cooperative, basically kind, gentle, a woman who perhaps cooks, clean, takes care of the home. Well, a man would submit in other ways, in a more manly fashion that we consider to, whereas he submits to providing, protecting, being generous, being kind, not being domineering. See, some dudes think that being a man means that you have to be domineering. And that is a huge misconception. I wouldn't want to be that kind of way with anybody, especially somebody that I lay my head next to.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I think submitting. When I think of submission in my marriage, my goal is to submit to the relationship. I think if you're not ready, because when you start a relationship, it's just like starting a business with somebody or whatever. You're creating this thing together, and so you have this higher objective that should be bigger than both of you. The worst thing to do, in my opinion, is to walk into a relationship with too much ego. Ego and selfishness will kill the relationship because there's going to be times where your ego is going to tell you to do something that's not beneficial to the relationship. So you have to make a decision. Okay, do I want to win this argument or do I want to stay married? And it's no different from being like on a football team. The worst thing in the world is to play on a football or basketball team with a guy that has too much ego. Then you end up like, I don't know, Russell Westbrook or something, and you can't win a championship because you don't understand that your stats are not as important as the team actually winning the game, right? No disrespect to Russell. He's a great player, but I don't think he's ever going to win a championship. And so ultimately,
is he really a great player?
I think he's good. He can put up stats, right? Him and Harden, when didn't him and Harden play together for a while? And when those two guys were on the same team,
they played. They played together in Oklahoma.
Was it Oklahoma? Yeah, and that's when I knew. I said this team will never win a championship because these are two guys that care about their stats. I don't think they care as much about the team winning as they care about their stats. And whereas a LeBron, he got the stats, but he's also got the championships, right? So it's a mindset. Right, so ultimately, Kobe was the same way. All these guys, all the champions, kind of understand that balance, and even Jordan had to learn the balance. Because remember, in the '80s, Jordan could not win a championship because he was Westbrook basically. He was scoring all the points, and the Bulls weren't winning. But then when he started realizing he was a part of something bigger than himself, and he had all these other moving components that needed to be managed in order for them to win, well, that's when the Bulls couldn't be stopped.
Well, there's also guys out there who have been very, very good scorers, right? But they can't win championships. I mean, for example, Charles Barkley.
Yeah.
Very good scorer, but he could never win a championship because he had a limited basketball IQ. And you can and you can also see that when he does his analysis on TNT. Some of the things that he say are so absurd, and you can see Shaq and Kenny looking at him like, yeah, but where your ring, bro? You didn't get a ring because of stupid thinking like you're doing right now. Some of those guys just don't have a very good basketball IQ. Yeah, they're talented. They can score. They can rebound. They can go up and down the court and all that stuff. But they don't know when to pass, when to shoot, where to be at when it's time to make that shot. When it's time they don't know they don't know how to manage their clock right. All of these things factor into your basketball IQ. And they just don't have that. The bottom line is they don't have that. And I said the same thing about Westbrook. I was like, this dude can score, he can be dominant, but I don't think his basketball IQ is that good.
I would agree with that. I think generally speaking, and another one I think about is like Tracy McGrady and how amazing of an athlete he was. But I also think it takes a certain type of toughness mentally.
Well, I think Tracy McGrady was injured a lot in his career. I think that's what slowed him down more than anything. And then, he never really had a team around him, and when he did have a team, he was injured.